The Platting Board will come to order. It's September 4th, 2019, 6:30 p.m. May we have roll call, please?
Daniel Young.
Present.
Clayton Walker is absent. Christina Enix.
Here.
Here. Absent. Don Porter.
Present.
Kevin Cross.
Here.
Mark Seward.
Present.
Valerie Ritz.
Present.
Jana Wilson.
Present.
Becky Lipson.
Present.
Thank you.
May we have a positive motion to say the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Porter.
So moved.
Any seconds? Mr. Cross, any objections?
No. Mr. Walker is here shortly.
Thank you. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Next item is action summaries for August 7th, and I believe that's the only one we have. No, August 12th and August 26th. Oh, 26th, excuse me, is a short plat, so action summaries for August 7th. May we have a positive motion? Mr. Porter.
Move to approve.
Thank you. And a second, Ms. Lipson. Any opposition? The action summaries are approved. Next item is minutes. We have minutes from August 7th. May I have a motion for them to approve the minutes? Mr. Porter.
Move to approve.
Ms. Lipson seconds. Is there any corrections or objections to the minutes? Hearing and seeing none, the minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is disclosures. Do we have any disclosures tonight? Mr. Cross, did you have a disclosure?
I did. I just wanted to make sure I'm not getting an action on my screen, so I can't move for anything. Or
Yeah, they'll be coming up.
all right, thank you. I just want to make sure I'm not missing something. Thank you.
So did you have a disclosure, Mr. Cross?
No, I don't have disclosure.
Okay. Anybody else have a disclosure? I have two. I'll do them together. In the cases of S12497 and S12501, my firm has done work with the petitioner's representatives in the past. I have no financial or personal interest in the matters before the board. I can remain impartial. In fact, in action as a member of this board without personal bias, my past involvement and personal interests will not prevent me from fairly evaluating the facts of this case. May I have a positive motion directing me to participate? May I have a show of hands? Oh, there we go, Ms. Wilson. And Ms. Lipson seconds. Ms. Wilson, will you speak to your motion, please?
I am going to be supporting this motion as it's been testified to that you don't have a financial interest in this matter and that you feel that you can be partial and not be impacted other than the information in front of you tonight.
Thank you. Are there any objections to my participation tonight? Hearing and seeing none, I am directed to participate. Next item is informational items. Are there any comments on the informational items, which are the several short plats? And for the record, show that Mr. Clayton has arrived. And we don't have a consent agenda tonight or old business. So the next item is new business. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at its meeting is after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedure. Petitioners, including his or her representatives, have 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc. have 5 minutes, and individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to actions that the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 21.11.304. The decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by written notice of intent of appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision within 20 calendar days or 20 days of the final appealable decision. An interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per AMC 21.11.503 or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision per AMC 21.30. There's not going to be a quiz tonight. The first case is S12497 McGann Subdivision, Lot 1. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request to subdivide 6 lots into 1 lot with vacation of a 50-foot right-of-way that runs north-south. This request is being made as the applicant would like to develop the petition site into a facility that would serve a light manufacturing use. The property is seeking a rezone to Chuyaki River I-1 with a concurrent plan and zoning case 2019-80. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the rezone. The petition site is located east of the Eagle River, north and west of Eagle View Drive, and south of Poppy Lane. No reviewing agencies had objections to the proposed vacation or plat. 109 public hearing notices were mailed on July 16, 2019. 1 public comment was received in regards to access to 16244 Poppy Lane. Staff has requested a condition for the petitioner to dedicate 25 feet of right-of-way for Poppy Lane. Eagle View Drive and Poppy Lane are classified as local streets in the official Streets and Highways Plan. The dedication of right-of-way for Poppy Lane and the unnamed right-of-way to the south conforms to the OSH&P plan. In the matter of the vacation request, the petitioner has requested vacation of a 50-foot by 250-foot right-of-way located between lots 53 and lots 53A and 53E. The proposed subdivision incorporates the right-of-way into the lot. In the matter of the standards 1 through 6, standard 1 has been met. The right-of-way is surplus to the current and future needs of the public. The right-of-way has not been utilized since it was platted originally in 1958, and the steep topography of the right-of-way precludes development. The traffic department also states in their comments that the right-of-way is in excess of municipal need, with the proposed reconfiguration into a single lot subdivision. Standards 2, 3, and 4 have been met. They do not lie on the half-mile or quarter-mile grid, and it's not part of the official Streets and Highways Plan. Standard 5 has been met. The vacation will not have any impact on traffic circulation. The existing street network and dedication of Poppy Lane and right-of-way to the south already provides adequate access to all existing lots in the area. Standard 6 has been met. The vacation will not result in realignment of existing right-of-way or impact existing traffic circulation. Agencies have expressed no objection to the request to vacate the right-of-way. The utility companies will have the opportunity to review the proposed plat and request easements as necessary. Therefore, staff believes the right-of-way is in excess of municipal need, recommends approval of the vacation as item A found on the staff packet, and also approval of the plat, which is B 1 through 6, found on page 7 and 8 of the staff packet. I'll be able to answer any questions, and the petitioner's representative is here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff?
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
I see the comment on page 35 of the material talks about using a 50-foot right-of-way. Is the comments that you guys have, or the notes that you're proposing for note 3 and note 4, going to address this person's access?
Yes, so that person's access will be, they'll have dedicated right-of-way there for Poppy Lane. So that is part of the 3 and 4 of the conditions in the staff packet.
Thank you.
That'll dedicate both north and south there. So they will, yep, they will have right-of-way.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff? We'll now open the hearing to the public. May we have the petitioner's representative please state your name for the record and spell your last name.
My name is Brad Rinke. I'm the survey manager for Bell Associates, and I am the petitioner's representative tonight. My last name is spelled Rinkey.
Mr. Rinke, do you want to reserve any of your time for rebuttal?
Yeah, don't have too much to say, but we'll see where I end up, but I will reserve that remaining time for rebuttal.
You may proceed.
First of all, I would like to thank the Planning Department for their comprehensive review of the application. I think they've covered all the points nicely. As a land surveyor and a resident of Eagle River, I feel that this replat and combined rezone is a good fit for the area. It is surrounded by adjacent businesses and very close proximity to the Glen Highway, and it's very suitable for light industrial or commercial uses. The original subdivision that created the current lot configuration was done a long time ago, back in the 60s, and it doesn't match the current uses, nor does it take into account the great use of the Glen Highway, which is immediately adjacent to it. These lots are really no longer suitable for single-family homes, which they were originally designed for. Currently, the proposed plat is adjacent to other commercial and light industrial uses. The petitioner is planning a sign business which will fit nicely into that area and benefit the Eagle River community. This replat and also the already approved rezone by the P&Z committee is well suited for this location, and again will be beneficial to the Eagle River community. We agree to staff's comments and conditions, and I will reserve the rest of my time for rebuttal.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioner's representative, Mr. Rinke? Thank you. Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify tonight? Anyone at all? And would you like to use any of your rebuttal time? You have 8 minutes and 38 seconds.
Is that a record? No, I'm good.
No, it's not a record, but thank you. He's indicating that he's not going to use his rebuttal time. We're now going to close the public hearing to the public, and the matter now rests with the board. May I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Walker.
I move to approve the request for vacation, elimination of a 50-foot by 250-foot right-of-way located between Lot 53 and Lots 53A and 53E, subject to recording a suitable plat within 24 months of approval and any approved time extensions.
Thank you. Ms. Ritz seconds. Mr. Walker, will you speak to your motion, please?
Yes, on page 6 and 7 of our plat, we have the 6 standards that are required to be met by the petitioner. I think that each one of those has been met. The right-of-way is surplus in that the right-of-way has not been developed or used since 1958, and the steep terrain in the area makes it impossible to effectuate a road in the area. With respect to the official streets and highway plan, it's not part of the official streets and highway plan. It also is not on the half-mile grid. It's not on the quarter-mile grid. And the municipality has established that the traffic pattern will be adequately resolved with the existing rights-of-way and with the 2 dedications that are going to be made as part of this plat. And there's been no agency objection, and the one objection from the public on page 35, we believe has been met with the dedications that are going to be made in this plat.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. May I have a positive motion for approval of the plat for 24 months subject to conditions on page 7 and 8? Mr. Walker.
I move to approve the plat for 24 months, subject to conditions 1 through 6 on page 7 and 8 of the staff's packet.
Thank you. And Mr. Cross seconds. Mr. Walker, will you speak to your motion, please?
I believe that the petitioner has requested these conditions to be applied, and specifically conditions 3 and 4 with respect to dedicating the right-of-way is necessary to make elimination of Part A proper. And with that, I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Comments? Are there, hearing and seeing none, is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, this motion passes. The next case is S12501, Kingsview Subdivision, lots 1 through 3. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The petition site is located along Brewster's Drive, southeast of the intersection of Brewster's Drive and Kenai Terrace Road in Anchorage. The purpose of this platting action is to subdivide 1 lot into 3 lots to be developed for single-family homes. There is an existing single-family home located on proposed Lot 2, which will remain. The property is zoned R10 SL. The proposed lots meet the minimum lot size and width requirements of Anchorage Municipal Code, as well as the underlying special limitations imposed on the property, which require a minimum lot size of 54,450 square feet, which is equal to 1.25 acres. Brewster's Drive is classified as a Class 1B collector in the official streets and highways plan and is outside the Bear Valley Limited Road service area. Although this street does not see this volume of traffic currently, Class 1B collectors are meant to serve between 2,000 and 10,000 vehicle trips per day. The right-of-way dimension for a Class 1B collector is a total of 70 feet in accordance with Anchorage Municipal Code. The submitted preliminary plat only shows a total right-of-way dedication of 60 feet. A condition to dedicate a total of 70 feet shall be added to this approval. In addition, a temporary turnaround easement will be required at the southern terminus of the proposed alignment. This easement will be automatically vacated once Brewster's Drive is further dedicated to the south. Brewster's Drive is currently compacted gravel with varying widths. The petition site lies within a Class B zoning district. Given current traffic volumes, it shall be required as a condition of approval through this platting action that Brewster's Drive be strip paved with an adequate turnaround to meet the standards of Anchorage Municipal Code, Title 21, Chapter 8, subsection 050D, Interior Streets. And this preliminary plat appears to generally conform to the petition site's classification as well as the following policies of the 2040 Anchorage Land Use Plan and the Land Use Policy 4.1, 5.1, and 8.1. And after consideration of these findings, the Planning Department recommends approval of the plat for 24 months, subject to the conditions listed on page 7, 8, and 9 of the staff packet. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions that the board has. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for staff? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to open this case to the public. May we have the petitioner's representative step forward, state your name, spell your last name for the record.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Bob Burnett. I represent the petitioner. We have no problem accepting the recommendations of staff. There is one item that I would like to talk about, and that is the strip paving. The very start of this project, we had a pre-application meeting at the city where planning and traffic and fire and all the departments was represented there. And at that meeting, they specifically stated that the road only needed to be brought up to emergency access standards. And they even talked about it a little bit in on sheet 4 in here on the second paragraph. Where traffic is said that they would recommend that the road just meet the emergency standards. And the reason for this is I hope that you folks got to go up there and look at that. There's about 6 cars a week makes it up there. And all they do is block the road. People get out and go hiking. There's probably not asphalt paving anywhere on a road within 3 miles of this property. There's a 2-inch pipe steel gate at the south terminus of this property going into the Brewster's homestead where people are not allowed to go in there. Up till recently, there was a steel 2-inch gate at the north end of this property where the property owners was trying to keep the people from coming in there and blocking the road where they couldn't even get into their house and everything. When we left that meeting, we was told that all the road needed to be was put to the emergency standards. Last Thursday, I got a phone call from Sean, and Sean told me that they was going to recommend the strip paving, which was totally news to us. That he told me that it had been recommended by the can't think of the department now, but anyway, by Mr. Moncrief over there. So Friday, I went over and seen Mr. Moncrief, and we talked about this, and I brought it up. I said, you was in that meeting, that pre-app meeting, when everybody agreed that this road would be brought up to just the minimum gravel standards. And he said, well, I'll have to go back and check my notes on it. Because I told him, you was taking notes in there when this happened and everything. He said, well, he couldn't remember it. He said he would have to go back and check his notes. And he would get back with me. Well, he has still not got back with me on it. If we have to pave the road up there, it's not a deal killer at all. But it's definitely going to be another bridge to nowhere. Because basically all you're going to do up there is create a small parking lot where people's going to come up there and park more on the asphalt than they are on the gravel and get out of their cars and take off up the hill. I've been surveying out there. I've been cutting line out there with a chainsaw. And I've had people come up there and go as far up on the hill as I could see out there. You couldn't pay me enough money to walk up there where some of those people go to. But the whole point of it is common sense. Is it really necessary, or is there a need to pave that with asphalt paving? If you guys come up with a recommendation to maybe put wrap on it, that would actually even make more sense than trying to strip pave it. But that's a decision that would be up to you guys. So anyway, that's really all I have to say about it. And so I'd be willing to, or be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes and 32 seconds left for rebuttal.
I hope I don't need it.
Are there questions for the petitioner's representative?
I have a question for staff.
Sure, go ahead.
So is it Sean or Ryan on this one? Oh, I see Ryan. So have you heard from Mr. Moncrief about this 20-foot strip?
Through the chair, Ms. Weltzine, I have. If you turn to page 40 of the staff packet, you'll see the comments from private development. They're from Greg Soule, who is a staff engineer for Mr. Moncrief.
Okay, so do you have any idea why, if traffic recommended the emergency access minimal standards, why we need to do something different than that?
Through the chair, Ms. Weltzine, emergency access doesn't necessarily state what the material of the roadway is. Gravel or crushed rock roadways are not currently allowed under current code. Private development does have some tools to where if there's a rational nexus to not put in strip paving, they do have some tools available to them in the form of waivers that they can oversee if they feel that strip paving may be too strict of a standard to hold this subdivision to. But that is how the condition is stated, is enter into a subdivision agreement with private development. And if private development felt that a 20-foot strip paved roadway was excessive, they could lower that requirement to gravel or crushed rock.
Well, I mean, the way that it reads is enter into a subdivision agreement with private development to construct Brewster's Drive to 20-foot strip paved standards. So, I mean, shouldn't we just say enter into an agreement and not specify that it's going to be 20 feet strip paved standards? If it can be changed, I mean.
Through the chair, Ms. Weltzine, we're going by the recommendations given to us by private development, and they would like the conditions stated as such, as worded in the staff report.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Welts, I talked with Mr. Moncrief about this, and he said, what you really should have done is you should have filed for a variance not to put the asphalt in. And I told him, I said, from the time that we left that meeting up until last Thursday, it was never ever mentioned. There was never another word said about it. And if that would have been common knowledge for us, it would have been, I mean, you would already had it. That was not a problem. It was just that we kind of got blindsided by it. And like I said, it's not a deal killer. But once again, you kind of have to look at the need. So, and I understand why private development is saying this, and it's strictly because Title 21 says that if you're improving a road, that this is what you're supposed to do to it.
Thank you. Ms. Lipson.
Thank you. I'm trying to figure out where this turnaround is going to go. So looking at that Plat Note 8, enter into subdivision agreement with private development to construct Brewster's Drive to 20-foot strip pave standards with a turnaround in accordance with, and then the code provision. So I have the platting map in front of me. Where, can you show me where that's?
It will basically go at the south terminus
Okay.
Of their property. Legally, I think the way the fire department looks at it, it has to be within 150 feet of the end of it, because they, for some reason, don't like to back their trucks up over 150 feet. And the turnaround has to be a minimum of 41.5 foot radius.
And so my second question is, there's property to the south of this property. Is that property undeveloped at this point?
No, ma'am. That's 330 acres, isn't it? Yeah, that's 330 acres of the original Brewster homestead. Mr. Brewster died several years ago and everything. The gentleman that is now managing all of that, when we had our public meeting, he came down and he stayed, what was it, 2 hours we had? He stayed the whole 2 hours and talked to us and everything. And he was basically just curious about the platting process and everything. But they was talking about turning that part into basically park. It's not used for anything now. There's no activity that goes in there. There's the steel lock gate there that only he or whoever he gives the key to can even get in there.
So they haven't decided what they'd like to do with it, but to date it is still R10 SL.
It's a very large piece of property.
And then is the only special limitation on this parcel that we're talking about the limitation for parcel size of 1.25 acres?
Ma'am, this is the way that this was subdivided. On the east side is the steepest slopes, and as it goes to the south, it gets down to 10 to 13%. Up at the top, it has a little over 20% slope to it. And if you look at your slope charts and everything, if it's 21% or something like that, I think it has to be a minimum of 5 acres.
Under the R10.
Well, the eastern lot, which is lot 1, is going to be everything east of the road, because if we made it just 5 acres, you'd have a little sliver there that wouldn't meet any code requirement for a lot. So that's why that lot was divided the way it is. The lot 2 was divided because they wanted to supply 5 acres with the house and then leave the rest of it for future development if somebody wanted to buy it or whatever. The reason that this is being subdivided like this and everything is they built their house up there 2 years ago. And to quote Mr. McAlpine, they had no idea of the wind and they had no idea of the hikers. And it's not that there's that many hikers, but they have had people come to their door and admonish them for building a house up there, because they said that they had been coming up there for years and walking over the property hiking very belligerently. And they don't want to live up there anymore. And the reason it's subdivided into 3 lots is just trying to get their investment back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lipson. Mr. Walker.
You've stated that you're kind of surprised at this position the municipality is taking with respect to the road construction standards. Is that correct?
No, sir. I'm not surprised at it. It caught us unsuspecting. As I said, when we left that meeting, and I wish Sean hadn't have left because Sean was in that meeting.
Okay. I see on page 41 that they stated, that traffic stated, that they didn't have enough information to determine whether or not the road could be built to minimum standards. That's the 4th paragraph on that page, the last paragraph. Have you provided them the information that they were requesting in order to be able to make that?
No, they had not requested formally anything on that. We'd be more than happy to sit down with traffic and go through that. When we left that meeting, everybody knew that it was a gravel road, and they even there had been people in that meeting that had been up there, and they remarked that there was a couple places in there that the road was less than 20 feet wide, and that it had to be widened to 20 foot with 2 foot shoulders. Yeah, and it was going to stay gravel, and that we was to put in the 41.5-foot radius for the emergency vehicle turnaround. That was what we left that meeting with, that understanding. And that was traffic and fire, and even private development was in there at that time.
If you had more time, would you prepare a request for variance from the building standards?
Yes.
And would you like us to table this for 1 month so you could have an opportunity to do that?
Yes. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Walker, you're saying that you would give us the 1 month to...
I can't unilaterally do
I
anything.
understand.
But
It has to go before the board, but
at least,
what you're suggesting is that you would give us time to go in and apply for the variance?
And provide the information that they're asking on page 41 so that you'd have more certainty about what
Sure,
they want.
and if there was any problem with that, we could file a variance. Ryan, can you process that variance within 30 days?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Burnett, we can renotice it in 30 days, but because it would be an amendment to the application, I believe we'd have to route it to reviewing agencies as well. So they would need adequate time to comment on it. So I believe 2 months would be more likely for a postponement time period to accommodate that process.
Yeah, and that's...
How long would it take you to get your information together?
It really wouldn't take us that long. I mean, it's all gravel up there except for what, bedrock sticking out. I mean, there's no mystery what's up there. We've dug test holes, and I have to confess the test holes was because they was doing septic percolations up there, and so they just used them as the test holes. But it's basically all gravel and everything.
Thank you.
But I'm not sure if 2 months is going to push you well into winter, and they was kind of hoping to get out of there by the time snow starts falling up there. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Walker, is it possible that you could approve the subdivision with a resolve the need for the strip paving with private development or something like that? Is that a possibility?
It's a possibility if it's the wishes of the board.
Then I think we would like to leave it with the board with that thought, possibly.
Okay, thank you.
Because that way it would be approved, and if it took us longer or whatever to do whatever's necessary, we could get that done, but then we wouldn't have to come back because the approval would already be there.
Ryan, did you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's just in response to Board Member Lipson did have a question earlier about the special limitations imposed on this parcel, and that can be found on page 65 of the staff packet. It's under section 3 of the attached AO. So thank you.
Are there any other questions for the petitioner? Thank you. We're going to close the public hearing and
Thank
matter
you.
rest with the board. May I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Walker.
I move to, in case S12501 Kingsview subdivision, I move to approve the plat for 24 months, subject to conditions 1 through 8 on pages 7 through 9 of the staff's packet.
Thank you. And Ms. Lipson seconds. And Mr. Walker, would you speak to your motion?
Primary conversation has been about the paving standards, which is condition number 8, whether it needs to be constructed to strip pave standards in the turnaround, or whether the standards would be subject to a variance available for emergency access standards as stated on page 41. In order to get a variance, the application would have to be renoted to the boards that would review the work to make sure or advise us as to whether the variance would be applicable. And not going forward, I don't know that we're in a position to grant a variance. However, I think that with standards as we've drafted them, enter into a subdivision agreement to construct in accordance with 2108-050D, the petitioner can possibly resolve a building standard that he's wishing to do. And I don't see that there are any other comments or objections. The petitioner has stated it's not a deal killer, and that time is of the essence and more important than putting things off for another season. Accordingly, I'm going to be in favor of the motion.
Thank you. And Ms. Lipson.
Thank you. I'm not sure if we discussed the language of Note 8 yet, if that was, Mr. Walker was proposing the language that he just stated. I think maybe we should check with staff about how exactly we should word that. So if now is an appropriate time, I might take a stab at drafting.
Now is an appropriate time.
Okay. So enter into a subdivision agreement with private development to construct Brewster's Drive to 20-foot standards with a turnaround in accordance with AMC 21.0.8.050D interior streets, and resolve the necessity for the strip pavement. Open to suggestions. And my other comment while I have the mic is just I will be supporting this motion and amendment to Note 8. However, I am not, by supporting that, I'm not proposing that there should be some type of deviation from strip pavement standards. I think I'm interested to hear what the department will ultimately find, and the fact that there's undeveloped land to the south leads me to believe that there might be additional traffic needs in the future.
Thank you. I think we're going to need an amendment. Mr. Yelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The language I would propose, if the concern is the language about a 20-foot strip pave standards, I would suggest it read as follows. So enter into a subdivision agreement with private development to construct Brewster's Drive in accordance with the standards of AMC Title 21, Chapter 8, subsection 050D, interior streets.
Thank you. May we have a motion for amendment to number 8? Yes, Mr. Cross?
Yeah, I just had a question. AMC 21.08.050D that you're stating that conduct to that standard, does that state that it has to have a 20-foot stripped pave? I mean, even if you remove the strip pave standard, if you remove that, if AMC 20 dictates that, it might as well be in there. Does that make sense?
Through the chair, Mr. Cross, that does make sense.
So to me, it would be better suited to say, enter into a subdivision agreement with private development to construct Brewster's Drive into a 20-foot turnaround. And they just work it out. And if you have a variance, that way, if it doesn't meet that code, it's between them and private development what they do with that street. But if AMC 21 says you have to do a 20-foot strip pave standard, then all we've done is we've removed it, but the standard says it's got to be that way anyway. Is it?
Mr. Chair, the board cannot do that because you'd effectively be granting a variance, and you do not have a variance request in front of you tonight.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Mr. Porter's going to be next, but the way we've handled these in the past is the way the petitioner's representative has requested, and that we modify, and we would need a motion for this, but we would modify number 8 to resolve with private development the need for the 20-foot strip pave standards. So we would put a resolved in there and then retain the rest of this number 8. That way, the issue could be resolved later. The petitioner's representative has stated that that's preferable to us tabling this, and that's how we've done it in the past. Mr. Porter.
Dan, I'm in agreement with what you're saying, and because then that puts the onus on both private development to approve whatever might be a waiver. You resolve the need, so therefore, if private development finds another way, like for instance providing a pavement surface, and when I say pavement surface, pavement is not always asphalt. It can be whatever supports emergency vehicles, and this is the point that I want to be clear on. Supporting emergency vehicle access means a very heavy vehicle, which has then some standards for how heavy the tire is on the road. There's engineering standards that apply to this, whether it be RAP, whether it be D1. These surfaces can support the emergency vehicles, which is really ultimately one of the bigger issues that comes here. So the waiver would then fall on the private development to decide to whether grant the waiver and use emergency access standards or go to full strip pavement. Resolve the need allows them that flexibility. And then they have to go through that waiver process, I think. It's just an opinion, never seen it done.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Ms. Lipson.
Question for staff. Does posing the resolve language, as Mr. Young just stated, does that raise the same concerns with improperly granting a variance that you previously raised?
Through the chair, Ms. Lipson, I don't believe so, because then the standard would still stand. It would just be a private development could decide exactly what standard is necessary in this case.
Thank you.
Mr. Seward.
Through the chair, just a comment on the access here of, even if it's required that Brewster Drive for the 660 feet plus or minus across this property is paved or strip paved, it's pretty much the similar road. I'm familiar with that road. The access back almost all the way to Kings Road is very similar to what is existing there now. So it wouldn't make sense. You could make it a concrete road in this subdivision, but the access to it is still a dirt gravel road. That's emergency vehicles aren't going to access that for several hundred feet, 1,000 feet, if not 1,500 feet from Kings Way to the property. So I would be supporting this motion with the amendment to resolve that construction issue there, because if you can't get an emergency vehicle to it, doesn't matter whether it's concrete or riprap or pavement, in my opinion, inside the subdivision. Just, that's my view, and I'll be supporting the amendment with a resolve issue.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Seward, for that clarity. And we don't have a motion to change number 8 to resolve yet. So, Mr. Porter, and then hopefully somebody will offer that motion. Mr. Porter.
Just quickly, and it's been kind of mentioned before, we certainly don't want to be in the position of granting the waiver for pavement, because when we look at the big picture of this, although we don't know when, the Goodman Homestead may subdivide at some point in time, and then they'll be, hey, I want my waiver from pavement, and then, you know, so it goes down the line. We have to be forward thinking enough to not make that decision for the municipality.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. We can vote on it, or we can entertain a new motion to amend item number 8. Mr. Seward.
I'd like just to rehear that motion on item number 8.
I only made a suggestion. I didn't make a motion. So let me give it another shot. It would be resolved with private development the need for a 20-foot strip paved standards with turnaround in accordance with AMC 21.08.050D interior streets, and enter into a subdivision agreement with private development. Would you like me to make that a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I move that.
Make a motion.
I can't.
Chair.
Okay. But, wait a minute.
You gotta get somebody here to make that motion for you.
That was my recommendation for a motion if somebody would like to make one. I'm not going to make a motion, and we have several other.
Can you bring it up so we can make a motion, a pending motion, and make an amendment to the motion?
Mr. Seward, are you going to make that motion?
I was. I'm happy to do so.
Okay, and Mr. Yali.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just say to simplify that language, to kind of clarify it a little more, just be to tack on resolve the need at the beginning of the condition, rather than resolve the need to construct a roadway and then enter into a subdivision agreement. Just put it on the beginning there.
I would agree to that. We've done that before. Many times. Anyone else wishing to speak? So now we have 2 motions on the floor. Let's vote on the last motion, which is the resolve the need to enter into a subdivision agreement. Are there any, well, let's vote. And the vote passes. And now we have the main motion on the floor. And we will vote on the main motion. And there's 1 no and 7 yeses. The motion passes. Okay, do we have, oh yes, okay. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to Any action the planning board takes, appeal of this decision or any of the conditions as governed by AMC 21.11.304, the decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Planning Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, any interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per 21.11.503 or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision per AMC 21.30. Are there any persons to be heard tonight? There are no reports, no committees. Are there any board member comments tonight? May I have a motion for adjournment, please? Mr. Walker. Ms. Lipson, seconds. We're adjourned.